The Dominion Podcast.
Hi everyone.
Hey,
It's
hey, brah. Hey,
bruh.
brah.
Wait, didn't we say we were never doing that again?
Why would we say that?
I don't know. I must have been kidding. Uh, it's I'm Adam, and this Wandering Winder.
Yo,
We're back for another episode of Making Luck, a
a
Dominion
Dominion podcast.
podcast.
A Dominion podcast. Hashtag true. Hashtag not really. Hashtag maybe we should.
Hashtag a Dominion podcast.
Hashtag a Dominion podcast.
That thing. You know what we're talking about, right, guys?
Making luck.
Or do we need more hashtags? Mm-mm.
Because hashtags serve to
Annoy people. Yeah.
increase the clarity.
Sure, it's something like that. I'll accept that. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so before we get to the kingdom from last time, I feel like we have a couple of announcements to make.
Ish.
I know that we haven't really come up with a unified place for us to interact with you, the
It's
listener. And if you guys want to give us some feedback, it would be great if you had a way to do it. And so I think we should tell you lots of ways that you can give us feedback
Different places that you can reach us.
on the internet.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think they are all on the internet.
That's right,
although
man.
that's not a requirement that
I-
I was thinking of going in.
If it's not on the internet, I ain't sharing it on a podcast. Sorry.
Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah.
What about your dog's squeaky toy?
Oh, you mean this little thing? What about it?
It
The
seems
dog
like
wants
you
it
just
now.
shared that on a Dominion podcast.
I did. Now the dog has it in her mouth, and it's kind of gross, so I don't want to touch it again. So
Right.
anyway, there are a couple of places. See, look what you've done. Look what you've done. Anyway, there are a couple of places.
And I should feel great.
Yeah. So there are a few places on the internet that maybe you're listening to our podcast. If you're listening to the podcast on my YouTube channel, just go
That's-
ahead and leave some comments there, and I'll read them.
It's, Adam Horton. Wait, no, it's youtube.com/Adam Horton01.
That's right. This is zero. Not
being
the
a
letter
zero,
O.
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. True.
Yeah, I
Uh,
post all the episodes there in video form, so that's
You can also get a hold of me on my YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/wanderingwinder.
oh yeah. I post links to all the episodes on Reddit, on the Dominion subreddit. So that's reddit.com/r/Dominion, or you can just go to Reddit and look for Dominion. There's just Dominion subreddit. So you can just look for the most recent episode there. I follow and respond to all the conversations on those threads as well.
Yeah, I'm on that subreddit most days.
Hotness.
I also have a blog, which is wanderingwindergames.blogspot.com. No, that's not right. Oh my gosh, did I just get the URL of my...
You sure about that, bro? It sounded good to me. It's wanderingwintergames.blogspot.com. Yeah,
Oh hey, what do you know?
Yeah.
That is correct.
it's all good, bro.
Great. That blog is not 100% about Dominion, but it's a lot about Dominion. And I will be posting things about every episode for the episode.
Yeah, and a lot of the topics that we think about for this podcast that end up not being suitable as much for a podcast as they are about like a text article. Like, Wandering Winder will post on his blog, and I'll post them
true.
on the Dominion subreddit. Like, you just made us...
Yeah.
Yeah, you
We
just-
like writing articles too. Some things work better as articles. Some things work better as Dominion podcasts.
Yeah, like you just had your Swindler thing that you wrote, and I just wrote an article about Apothecary that's on Reddit, and like you guys should totally check them out. I think they're both like super good.
I read it.
That was a good one. I'm hoping that there can be, maybe even more ways for you to get in touch with us. But for now, those are definitely the ones where if you want us to hear what you have to say, like you can go to any of those and we will hear what you have to say. And almost in all almost all cases we will respond to you. And I want to emphasize kingdoms for us to talk about. That seems to me like the piece of feedback that I want to hear from the listeners more than anything else. Kingdoms to talk about, and then your feedback on the kingdoms that we play. I feel like, I like to hear what you guys think about it, man.
For sure. That's what I would expect on every week. But I also want to emphasize that I very much look forward to if you guys don't understand something or disagree with something we say in the meat of our podcast sandwich. That is
You,
absolutely something that I want to hear and that I want to talk about.
I mean the
Um,
Virginia brand ham?
oh yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
it's a superior variety of
Okay.
ham.
Okay. Good.
It's a superior lunch meat.
Yeah.
Um, but
But
that trope, that trope. So we're um, oh, I should mention the blog. I'm gonna have posts about every one of the things, but you can also reach me by there's a contact me form at the bottom of the page.
cool.
But yeah, so we should be there on all there. Hopefully, at some point, um, there'll be a place that most of you end up going, and that's where most of the discussion happens. If that happens, well, I'll funnel you there.
Oh yeah.
And at some point, we're definitely not there yet, but at some point, we may make a website
Oh
for the
yeah.
podcast. It could happen. It could happen.
It's not impossible.
Yeah, it's not impossible either.
It's not any of those things.
It's definitely not.
Hashtag defo not.
Hashtag definitely not. Definitely.
Sure. Uh, yeah. So I remember last episode, at the end of the episode, there was a kingdom of not only 10 cards,
It's true.
but actually 11 cards
Also true.
that we had introduced. And
Also true.
Wandering Winter and I just got done playing like a buttload of games.
I think it was like 5
Yeah, so like okay, like 1.3
or
buttloads
6
of
or
games.
something. I don't remember. It
1
was
to
a load.
1.3 buttloads of games on that kingdom, and you want to talk about it, brah?
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Do you,
You
do
wanna you wanna remind folks of what was in said kingdom?
I will. The kingdom cards were Native Village, Menagerie, Urchin Warehouse, Fortress, Young Witch, Haggler, Tribute, Venture, Prince, and the Bane for Young Witch's Tunnel.
Bird.
Yeah, that thing. Once again, for our audio only listeners, Native Village Menagerie, Urchin Warehouse, Fortress, Young Witch, Haggler, Tribute, Venture, Prince, and Tunnel as the Bane for Young Witch. And so the thing that I had noticed when I first saw the kingdom is the glaring lack of plus buy. So you're
It's
really
glaring. In fact, I don't.
I look at my monitor a certain way, and there is a glare on it, and
Yeah,
there is no
I've
plus
got the
buy.
window open right now, and the
Yeah.
sun hasn't set yet, and well, there isn't actually glare from that one.
But there could have been, right?
It could, yeah, absolutely.
That's right. And so, in whatever glare that could or could not have been, mostly could have been, there was no plus buy in that glare, and that really limits the potential for your turns, right? You're scoring 6 points at the most on your turns. So that's
Or
important.
up to 8 points if you're trashing 2
Well,
curses,
you can
or
trash as
actually
many
up
curses,
to
yeah.
up to 18 points if you trash all 10 curses on one turn.
Well, in a three-player game, you could trash and hand out lots of
Yeah, we're
curses.
not talking about 3 player. This is a 2 player Dominion podcast. We might talk about 3 player at some point,
Totally.
but not right now.
Yeah, great. So I thought Urchin was certainly worth going for. The trashing of the purples that are warmly accepted by my face in the process of playing this game
Oh yeah.
were important. And I thought that you could build a roughly relatively thin deck that can province very consistently and keep kind of clean. So that's a thing that I liked. Um, and I think you felt mostly kind of sort of the same way, but maybe not.
Yeah, if you go back and listen to what we were talking about last time, I was like, my gut feeling is just go Young Witch Tunnel and hammer it. But that gets walloped pretty bad, I thought.
Hmm.
Um, but that was my gut, but I thought that, upon more reflection, you probably do some engine thing, similar to what Adam was talking about. Adam was not high on Prince, and I thought Prince was potentially a good card. But the problem is, of course, plus buy. So I think what I'd settled on was if you spike an early 8, get Prince, but you're pretty unlikely to do that.
Yeah, I feel like by the time I was hitting 8 for Prince, my deck was to the point where I could already just province per turn with
Certainly, the
enough
way that our
reliability.
games played out, that was true.
Yeah, I figure
Or you weren't quite province per turn, but you were close.
close enough that I didn't feel like Prince
Close
was going to be
enough
worth it.
that you weren't really getting your time back from buying Prince instead of province. I don't think.
For sure, Z's. Absolutely.
At best, you were getting it back. I don't think you were making a profit on it.
Oh yeah, I tend to agree. Um, we played like 5 games, and at the end of those 5 games, I was reminded of how much variance is inherent in each of the strategies we were suggesting.
Yeah, we're talking about some making luck here. A Dominion podcast.
A Dominion podcast, yeah.
A Dominion podcast.
So like
Uh,
Urchin, like that's a big deal. If my Urchin and my Young Witch that I open with collide on turn 3, I'm in great shape. And
yeah,
if they collide on turn 4, I'm in okay, decent shape. And if
right.
not, I'm in big stinking trouble, you know?
And if his urchin collided with my young witch so that I couldn't get a second one, that was not good for me. Um, but if I was able to get a second young witch, so I should actually point out how I had played because it wasn't how I was saying last time. I went with my gut feel mostly, and I went young witch urchin. I opened with a green card because it was the burn.
You open Young Witch Tunnel. You said Urchin, you meant Tunnel.
Yeah, I said urchin. Then I described tunnel, and yes, in fact, it was tunnel.
Great.
I opened Young Witch Tunnel, and then I just bought a bunch of Young Witches and tunnels, and then some duchies and tunnels and provinces, maybe.
Yeah, it's pretty rad.
Yeah,
I enabled a lot of tunnel discards for you.
yeah, you really did, because I mean, but the thing is, if you're gonna go for that engine, you need to get Urchin, and you were kind of waffling between how many Urchins you got, but you're gonna get some, and then you're gonna get Mercenaries, and you're gonna discard cards for me quite a lot.
For sure, and the fact is, it does keep you away from provinces. So like that's a big deal. The games
Usually,
where you were provincing were a lot harder for me to win. Like there was a game where I had a decent start, but you got provinces, and I don't think I won that game.
yeah, there was that game where you like totally equalized the points because I failed a duchy a few turns in a row, and then I just like
Got
province, province, province.
that
You're
was
like,
bad
what?
for Adam.
But I think one of those turns was even through a mercenary attack because I just had 3 golds and hung on to them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was getting the golds were getting down to like 14 golds left or
like
something.
10 in one case. Yeah.
Yeah, they were getting kind of low, but not really in danger of running out. Um, the interesting thing from my point of view was how aggressively do I go after piles? Because like the first game I won off of a I'm pretty sure it was very correct for me to buy a curse on one turn because I was definitely aiming to empty curses, tunnels, and duchies, and that was kind of my main game plan. But I think as it turned out, it was always better for me to buy a province if I could than a duchy, say, that would help me run out the pile. Unless, of course, right, it ends the game exactly right then.
Sure.
Um, so that was an interesting thing. I think another thing that was pretty important was I got a lot of tunnels and I got them pretty fast. I greened pretty fast, but I was getting lots of young witches, like 4, 5 young witches.
That's a good card for your deck. I mean, at some point, Warehouse becomes better, but not until those purples are gone.
Yeah, and it's not much better anyway.
Yeah,
Like it's a tiny bit better, but not much at all. And getting those purples into your deck to slow you down a little bit and empty the pile was a big deal.
yeah, for sure. When the curses were gone, I felt a lot of pressure, and I just kind of hoped I wasn't behind by so many points that I couldn't catch up.
The other thing about running out the curses is that means I don't have the curses in my deck, which is really good for me.
Yeah, it's points for you. Like if the purples are in my deck, they eventually end up in the trash, but not for you.
Right. Well, and also just like the junky nature of I'm gonna have some junk cards. I have a lot of green cards anyway, and I have some sifting, but like those purples still hurt in terms of deck quality.
I also I think I had made a reference to the possibility of second player advantage in this game because of Young Witch, but oh man, first player is so huge
First
in
player
this
was
game.
huge.
Yeah. It's a big deal. Like shuffling purples in for the Urchin player is really bad, and shuffling purples in for the Young Witch player is I don't know. He was blocking most of my purples anyway because he had a million tunnels.
I was getting a lot of tunnels.
Yeah.
It
Like
was the burn.
it was the burn.
I used to be able to do that better. Sad day.
It's okay. I forgive you, bro.
I used to be able to do a really good Ben Stein and like a perfect well anyway.
Oh man, Ben Stein. Win Ben Stein's money. I remember that show.
I never did. One of my coworkers was on that. He did
Are you serious right now?
I am serious. I'm not serial, but I am serious.
And wasn't Jimmy Kimmel the quote host of that show?
He was the
The guy who asked the questions
yes.
when Ben Stein was
Well,
playing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think Ben Stein was the host, but Jimmy Kimmel was the other.
The the question guy, yeah. A
Yeah.
very young Jimmy Kimmel before. Oh
Yeah,
man.
that was like what how he broke into like on the national scale stage, I think.
I think
I could
so,
be
yeah.
wrong.
And now he's just thrown his entire life away on that stupid lip sync battle that I think is terrible. But I guess we're going on a tangent here, aren't we?
That is definitely a tangent. I'm surprised you didn't edit that out.
I'm way too lazy for that. And now, where am I gonna cut that out?
You'll figure it out somewhere.
So anyway, I probably just cut to here because we went on a tangent. No, I'm kidding. That's not happening. Anyway, I don't have much else to say about this kingdom.
By the way, I do not endorse the statement that Jimmy Kimmel has thrown his life away. I don't.
Maybe that was a little harsh, but the lip
That's
sync
an
battles are
that's an
terrible.
that's an Adam Horton opinion. Hashtag trademark Adam Horton opinion.
Hashtag trademark Adam Horton opinion. That's a heck of a hashtag.
We need to make that a hashtag.
Okay. You do that, bro. You do
Kimmel
that.
began his television career as the comedic counterpart to Ben Stein on the game show Win Ben Stein's Money.
Comedic counterpart. That's what he's called. Okay. So anyway, if you have any more comments, let us know what you think, man. Comment on thingies and all the places we describe, either the YouTube channels, the Wandering Winter Games blog, or the Dominion subreddit. Let us know. Holla back.
Girl,
Holla forward. Holla in whatever direction you feel would suit you best.
you do you
That's right.
in terms of holla'ing.
Holla like the bread.
Uh, you know,
I feel like that's a
I
little sweet and dense to be going with that Virginia brand ham.
so here's the thing. It's wonderful and delicious
True.
because it's bread,
Yeah.
but there are other superior breads out there.
Well, there are other superior breads, but challah has to be in the above the 75th percentile
Of breads?
of breads. Yes.
I don't know, but maybe that's just because I've never actually been able to make a challah bread.
Yeah. I grew up in a community that was like 80% Jewish, so I had a lot of challah and like
Because
fresh good challah.
I ain't no challah bread boy. Ain't no challah bread boy. You have any idea what I'm making a reference to?
Yeah. So in Dominion.
And we're back from another edit.
So in Dominion, a lot of people describe it as a deck building game, a game in which you build decks, and
It's the king of the deck builders.
yeah, it is the best one in my humble opinion. I play other
Or
deck
queen.
builders.
It could be the queen. Let's not discriminate,
Yeah,
but rather appreciate.
that's right. Embrace reality and whatever. So, uh, so anyway,
Wow.
you're building
You
your
sound
deck
so
throughout this
inclusive
game.
there, Adam.
I am inclusive. I'm inclusive of all types of decks that you can build. And
Whatever.
in the words of someone, maybe Jefferson Starship, I'm not sure, but some other things that we build in our lives besides decks and Dominion. Maybe that I built a
City. This time, it isn't Standy. You think that was Jefferson Starship?
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't.
Starship. Jefferson, yeah. It's just Starship, not Jefferson Starship.
Wow.
Thank you.
See, you were so wrong.
It's Jefferson Starship. They just don't go back. Anyway, it's a card in Dominion.
No, it's Starship. You're thinking of Jefferson Airplane.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm right about this.
So here we go. Although it was originally a continuation of Jefferson Starship, its change in musical direction and subsequent loss of key Jefferson Starship personnel enforced name change ultimately led it to become a separate entity from the original band.
All right, I'd like to issue a formal
Hashtag thanks for-
apology. Anyway, so we're going to talk about City, the Dominion card.
Yeah.
The
That
the so it's a card, and I guess I could like read the text of the card for you. So it's a $5 action from the Prosperity expansion. It gives you a card and 2 actions, which is the village, right? And then there's some text at the bottom. It says if there are one or
we built this village.
if there are 1 or more empty supply piles, plus 1 card. If there are 2 or more, plus $1 and plus 1 buy. So the first phase of City is just like a village. The second phase of
Takes a
City,
village?
it does take a village. The second phase is plus 2 cards and plus 2 actions, so it's like a village and a lab. And then the third phase is just ridiculous: 2 cards, 2 actions, dollar buy. It does all of the things basically. It's super great.
I'd just like to point out that I was very helpful to you while you were trying to read the text of that card.
You totally were.
You're welcome.
Thanks for that. So City, it's a really good card when you can get all the bells and the whistles and the whatchadoodles. But
Yeah, when you get it up to level 2 or 3, depending on how you want to come down on that side of the debate, I in principle like the 0, 1, 2 thing, but I tend to go with 1, 2, 3 because that's what most people anyway. I don't know.
I just say activated whenever it suits what I'm talking about, and I
What
don't
about
really define it that much.
what? How do you differentiate between the one where it's draw 2 cards plus 2 actions and draw 2 cards plus 2 actions plus money plus buy?
It's just whichever one I feel more strongly about at the time.
No, but like, what do you say? If activated is one, aren't they both activated? Is it?
Uh,
Sometimes I go with activated versus doubly activated or fully activated.
Totally. So City is a sort of a unique effect. It's one of those non-attack interaction cards in Dominion, and
Hot.
yeah, and it's one of those cards that gets stronger in mirror matches a lot because they tend to get activated more. So the game tends to center around them in a lot more cases. If one player is going for City strongly and is right in doing so, City becomes very much a focal point of the game,
Oh yeah.
and that's magnified in the mirror match because the split becomes very important. Um, I would say that this leads to 2 very different styles of games. There's some of them where you don't want the city, you never touch the pile, and it's very important that you never touch the pile if the other guy disagrees with you.
Yeah.
And then there are the games where you dive for the cities very quickly because they're usually more powerful than any other card on the board, so you just want more of them in your deck because it tends to increase your capabilities.
And very rarely they're a fine but not great card, and it doesn't really matter. But that's quite uncommon.
Yeah, that's like heavy cursing games where the curses are out and you have
I would
5 that
say
don't
I
want
would say
duchy.
less
And
than heavy cursing. I mean, so that's one style, but also like you have the world's greatest engine anyway, and okay, city is really good because it's 2 cards and 2 actions, but like there's a bunch of other like I could be getting 2 cities, or I could get Bazaar and Margrave, and like
I,
maybe it's a little better, but it's not.
I just picture this coffee mug that says "World's Greatest Engine."
And it's not an engine; it's a coffee mug.
Yeah, I didn't say it made
Interesting.
sense. Just saying. So, so I mean, a lot of the interesting
Can you put
decisions.
things other than coffee in this mug?
I usually don't put coffee in my coffee
Could
mugs.
you? Could you design a really tiny engine and put it in the mug?
Yes, I bet you could get like one of those mini quadcopters and
That'd
probably
be hot.
a big mug. Yeah. So a lot of the interesting decisions around City are whether or not you want to go for it, right? Because when you want to go for it, it's just a matter of okay, when do I prioritize the split, which depends so much on the rest of the kingdom that like it is kind of tough to say.
Well, I want to talk about this, and I
Okay.
think I think it's important to focus on this first. Like, this is something that's true in general, but especially true when it comes to City. You're at the beginning of the game, you have to think about what kind of strategy do I want to take? And in the case of City, you have to figure out, do I want to play a City deck or not? Is it worth it to go for City or is it not? Um, and then you figure out the implementation, right? And in order to figure this out, you have to assume that your opponent will not cooperate. So generally, I find the important thing is assume not a mirror, okay,
Of
to figure
course.
out which strategy is better.
Right. That
Then, once you figured out which strategy is better, you think about, okay, but they'll probably mirror me because they'll also be wanting to play the good strategy. And you want to make sure that you're still playing something that's good enough to win in a non-mirror, but that you're not going to get blown out because you're just angling for the non-mirror and you get destroyed because they're playing for the mirror.
right. So of course you have to pay attention to what your opponent's doing. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
that happens a lot.
That that virtually every game.
Pretty much every game. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I'm asking myself, do I want to go for cities at all? Um, it's usually an option between ignoring them and making that the focal point of my strategy. And that usually, I mean, the big times when this question comes into play is like, can I activate the cities? Can I get them to give me the thing that I need? And there are two things that the cities can give you that you potentially need. And it's draw and plus buy. So sometimes you need city for draw, and you need to empty one pile to get your cities to draw you cards. And I would say that if you have a plan to empty the cities without help from your opponent, without the draw, so that you can get your draw and then build a better deck, I mean, that plan has to involve no help from your opponent.
Right. Because you can't assume, oh, but my opponent will also be getting this thing, and so then we'll be fine. Now, in some cases, you kind of can assume your opponent will help you, but that's only when there's some key card that you have to get, right? So I don't know. There's some other card that's very important, and you're gonna run them out.
I'm thinking
And
like,
the only way you can assume your opponent's gonna help you is if they don't help me, they're going to lose anyway because they're not touching this pile, and I will destroy them.
sure. So I'm thinking like tournament maybe sometimes.
Tournament, I don't think tournament's a great example because
Ouch. A
that
dagger
doesn't
through my
really run
heart?
out very often, right? Like,
You
how
sure,
often
bro?
do you get? Well, usually like one or two tournaments is fine, but it's not like I'm gonna just drive the pile, right?
I mean, I don't start the game trying to drive the pile, but sometimes you hit a lot of four and you want some tournaments, you know? It could
I
happen.
don't see. I don't think tournament's a good example. I was thinking something more like, um, well, Fishing Village is kind of a good example of a card that empties really fast, and
Sure.
in that case, they usually don't have to empty Fishing Village, right? But after a little while, you can see that's likely to happen, or they're going to get very low anyway, and you don't have to do that much work to get them online, right?
Sure, yeah.
Um, Foragers can get low. What other kinds of cards can get low? Generally, it always has to be something that's pretty spammable, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
I would say easy to gain, something that's cheap. So like,
Usually pretty cheap. Peddler is a great example,
oh yeah, peddler, that's a good one.
right? Peddlers, well, if my opponent doesn't touch peddlers, I'm going to get 10 peddlers and they're not going to have any. Yeah, I'm going to win that game a lot of times, if there's some decent plus buy. and a bunch of actions. If I have a bunch of workers, villages, or hamlets or something that I can get a lot of actions that get me plus buy in play, market squares or something. And I can run those peddlers. If they don't contest me on those, I'm going to win the peddler split really, really well. And then in that case, it doesn't really matter that haven't gotten my cities online because I'm going to win based on I have a 9-1 peddler split or something, right?
Yeah, and I feel like the draw from city could potentially serve you very well in that situation. So yeah.
It could, but you can also kind of audible out of getting a lot of cities if your opponent's just really not helping you, and you're going to be fine, right?
Yeah, sure.
So in that kind of a case where I know the peddlers are going to run out, then you can plan ahead and be like, well, I'm probably going to be getting a bunch of cities because these peddlers are going to run out. And if for some weird reason my opponent doesn't do that, then it doesn't hurt me that much that I've got a couple cities because I'm going to have a huge lead on peddlers.
Okay. I feel you, bro. I feel you. So like you have a plan, like yes, the peddlers are going to run and so city is going to be good and you focus
Right,
on the
right. So it isn't necessarily that you have to empty a pile without any help from your opponent, but you have to have a plan for your opponent not helping you empty a pile, right?
Sure, because I mean, I've definitely done this, and I'm sure a lot of you have. I've played those games where I just, pile the cities. I'm getting one per turn, and then I finally empty the cities, and my opponent has 7 provinces. That doesn't feel good. You don't want that to happen to you.
I've totally won those games before.
Oh, well, I've lost those games.
Usually because Goons was on the board.
Yeah, that'll do it, goons. That's a thing. It's a card in Dominion.
Dominion!
Yeah, that. So, and I feel like, it gets a little bit magnified when you're counting on City for the plus buy rather than the draw. I mean, a lot of times you have trouble getting double City turns without draw. If City is your only source of draw, that can be a real hurdle. So that's big contingency you have to plan for. But emptying 2 piles without any plus buy other than City can also be a significant challenge if your opponent's not going to help you with it. And I feel like that's the analogous situation when it comes to counting on cities for your plus buy, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, emptying 2 piles advantageously by yourself is really hard.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that if you're going to look for the prime enablers, like if what do I look for in a kingdom to really think that this is viable? And I would think the biggest thing is something that can gain cities. So I'm talking about university, altar, stonemason, and maybe some other business like remodel, but not remodel, but like some way to get lots of cities without plus buy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
And I think those are typically the big enablers. On the other hand, sometimes you have plus buy and you really just need it for the draw.
sure, when you say that, the 2 cards that come to my mind are goons, like you mentioned, and also bridge.
Yeah.
Those are the big explosive payloads that can justify you taking so much time to empty cities, potentially just 1 per turn.
And I think that's the key point here, right? Is you need a really explosive payload because on basically any board, my opponent is going to be able to do a lot if I'm just wasting a lot of time just buying cities, which are just villages for me for most of the game. So that means that I need to, once I get them active, I need to be doing something very powerful
Yeah.
that works in a very short amount of time too, generally.
And like, if I think about non-terminal things that fit this description, they just don't seem powerful enough. And so like with City, luckily you're getting that extra action, but that's another thing that you can think about when, oh, is this worth it? Like you can just look, wait, am I getting use out of both the actions and the cards when I've committed myself to doing this? And if you're not, well, yeah, it doesn't feel good because you're leaking value, but in a lot of cases that means you lose the game. It's not a winning strategy to go for it, yeah.
Right. If you think about it, if you're not using the actions, then you're just spending $5 a lot on lab. And Lab is a fine card, except it's not very good when it only draws you one card for the first 8 turns you have it.
It's no bueno. I mean, you're just not. If you're spending
Like
10
Lab isn't
turns,
that good.
yeah, if you're spending 10 turns doing nothing but adding labs to your deck, that loses to big money, doesn't it? Like,
Well, but the thing is, you're not even doing that. You're spending 10 turns adding Village to your deck. That once you finish that, then they're Labs.
right, the fact that they don't turn on, so to speak, as labs until they're gone makes it
Right.
much more difficult to do anything with your turns other than adding that card to your deck in so many cases, especially if you're counting on it for draw, right?
Right. Right. So that's generally a no go. You don't want to. You want to be now. Maybe I get 10 cities and I don't have 10 terminals. I have 6 terminals. That's okay.
It's okay,
You
man.
know, you don't need to be necessarily making use of all of the actions, but you need to be making use of a lot of the
If I
actions.
can play 6 goons, I probably win the game.
That's probably true.
Yeah,
Yes.
probably.
Hashtag edge cases.
Hashtag probably true. Yeah. Uh, so the other big topic, if you're okay moving on at this point,
Oh yeah.
the other big topic on City has to do with denial, and I feel like in a lot of two-player games of Dominion in general, denial is something that comes up when you're just like, well, there's this key card, and if I let my opponent have all 10 of them, I'm going to lose, so I need to contest them, so I want to get at least 5, right? Um, City denial is not like that at all.
Yeah. It's pretty much the opposite.
Yeah, it's the opposite. I mean, if you're not going for cities and you've decided the cities aren't good, you certainly don't want to contest them. If anything, I mean, that's just such a bad play. Like, you're going to lose the game because you cut out turns until their deck is amazing, doing something that's marginally good for your deck and not taking a huge points lead, right?
Right, right.
It's,
So the thing to note here is that it's incredibly rare to have a deck where 8, singly activated cities isn't going to be enough, but 10 will, right?
right, right.
It's just like if 10 is going to get them to their explosive, they win. 8 2 turns faster is going to be better.
Like, even with those huge payloads of goons and bridge, like 2 turns of playing 8 bridges is way better than 1 turn of playing 10 bridges. And the same thing with goons, right? So, like,
2 turns playing 5 bridges is plenty to win the game.
right, right. So, like, giving them those extra turns is a big deal because whatever you're doing without draw and or plus buy in your deck, it's that turn is what, buying a province at best. That's not going to
Right.
compete with the extra
Right.
turns that
So
you give them.
so you don't want to touch these whatever the pile card is, particularly if it's city at all, right?
Yeah.
Um because every time I buy a city to quote unquote, oh, I'm going to deny them. What I'm really doing is saying, okay, one fewer turn until you get to start having your really good turns. And if I'm not going for city myself, I'm not really contesting them and going for a city strategy myself. Basically, I'm saying just one fewer turn until you
Win.
get to, do your thing to win the game because whatever I'm doing without these cities is almost certainly less powerful than what you can do with 8 activated cities.
Sure. Yeah.
Or I keep saying 8. It doesn't have to be 8 if it's 7, if it's 9,
55.
whatever.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, it's not going to be 55.
Why you gotta be such a buzzkill, man?
You know,
We have to do our best at. I understand. So
if it were 55.
I'm making the heart with my hands again here. But anyway, like, yeah, denial on cities is precisely not buying them in the case when you're not mirrored. But I think the one of the the interesting case, at least in my mind, that's more interesting, is in the mirror when you're really dancing around not emptying piles.
Right.
I think that becomes very interesting, and like, I feel like in this case, city games aren't really won in a lot of cases. Like, I see a lot of really good players doing some things with cities that seem really questionable, going for them at all in some cases in a mirror win.
So
But like dancing around piles, like city games aren't won; they're lost by a person, and the person to their
so
left wins. You know.
so sure. The first thing here is the basic thing to know is you usually don't want to be the person assuming that you are buying these, right? You don't want to be the one who buys the last card in a pile.
Like if you're
The
contested on
reason
cities, yeah.
the reason being, yeah, if you're both going for cities, the reason being, if you are the person who buys the last one, then the other person gets to have their big fun turns first,
Hmm.
right? You can buy the second to last one, who cares? But if you buy the last one, they get to start, going off, having their huge turns. And that is usually such a big difference between what I'm doing before they get activated and what I'm doing after they get activated. It isn't worth it.
Like you just lose the game. Like if I empty that second pile,
Very
my
often, you
opponent
just
just
lose the game.
my opponent just empties estates or something. Like it's very it's
Right,
not
right.
beyond.
Especially the second
Oh
pile.
yeah. But even the
Um,
first one, like if the payload is explosive enough to go for, like one turn is how you win or lose the game. It's such a huge deal. And so like just sitting there and doing nothing, buying one province per turn and inviting your opponent to misplay and empty that pile, like
well, and at some point you might have to, right? At some point you might have to be like, if
YOLO?
what else am I going to do? And you dance around and you've gotten the cities down to one, and you get the next pile down to one, and you get the duchies down to one, and the provinces are down so low. Like I have to do something, right?
Sure. But stalling as long as possible can be the correct line of play in so many cases.
But having said that, particularly for the first pile, but even for both, I find that there are some times and some players that take that too much to heart,
Okay.
and they just refuse to empty a pile when people are both going for cities.
So what are
Um,
cases where you don't have a clear advantage in number of cities, where you would say it's a mistake to not activate the cities and let your opponent have that first big turn?
Typically, when you don't have a lot of gains, um, and to where it's more important to get that two city swing, right? If I don't buy it, so let's say I'm up 5-4 on cities, or I'm down 4-5 on cities. Let let's say I'm down 4-5 right now, right?
Okay.
If I buy the last city, then we each have 5 cities. Um, but if I don't buy it, my opponent does, then I'm down 4-6. If because all we've been doing so far is really go after the cities hard, then our payload isn't really very well developed yet, and that's going to come, then it's not as big a deal that they get to draw first, because I'm going to get to draw right after them.
Okay, I understand. So what you're doing is you're minimizing the effect of um, of the emptying the pile and increasing the quality of the deck, but you're also still incorporating the fact that the city split is important. That I don't want to have too few
Absolutely.
cities to give my opponent the advantage of like, oh well, I can empty this pile anyway, give my opponent the first turn and still be in great shape.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's certainly the city split being important is that is sometimes more important than um than especially if, say, I'm up 6-3, even, if you ever get in that situation, like, you got to turn them on.
For sure, 7-3 advantage on cities. Like
7-3 is
you
huge.
got to
And
start using that.
conversely, if I'm down 6-3, I got to turn them on too, because 7-3 is going to kill me
Yeah, I
otherwise.
mean, you have that advantage. You have to make something of it if you have more cities. If you don't turn them on, these are turns that are comparatively speaking
So
helping your opponent.
so the interesting thing here is, if you have a decently developed payload with a lot of buys, you still want to not do that. You still want to not activate, in a lot of cases, uh, because just the first turn is really, especially on the second activation, because you just end the game,
Hmm.
right? But uh, even on the first activation, sometimes, like, you just hold off doing that, because if there's enough other things I can do to help my deck, then getting that first crack is a big deal. If I'm up 5-4, maybe if I have, a couple of a council room and a Margrave and, you know, I don't know, some other decent payload card, right? Then, I've got some buys. I'm going to be able to do some really powerful things. But at this point, I want to bring up that it's important. You can't just rely on only cities to be your engine very often, right?
Yeah. If the city is all the components, the draw and the plus buy, I mean, it's going to be hard to activate them in time, right? So I would think
Well,
that deck would be pretty weak if it relies on
I'm
city
saying
for everything.
most decks you're going to want some other form of draw, I think, usually,
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
and or good trashing.
Right. They're very
Like
similar.
weak trashing and draw is definitely fine. Strong trashing without draw can work
Hmm.
sometimes. Um, but you need to have some combination of other engine things. You can't say, well, I'm going to get 10 cities and that's going to be my engine. Because 10 cities draw, even once they're activated, they draw you 10 cards. We had to draw 10 cities also, or they draw you 20 cards. 10 of those are cities,
Yeah,
plus you had 5 to start with. You started with 10 junk cards. You're not going to be drawing your deck.
for sure.
You need some other help. So like level up cities are good, but they're not just like a deck in a box.
That'll be too easy. Yeah.
They're not a deck in a box. They're not.
They're not. It's true.
It's
Yeah.
true. That's not what they are.
Hashtag it's true.
Um, hashtag it's true.
Oh yeah.
So there's that. But let's go back to the pile emptying dance a bit more, shall we?
Yeah, because like there's this whole other facet of like activating the city's mid-turn, right?
Yeah. So that's a big deal. If you can get mid-turn gains, that changes the entire complexion of how things are happening.
Oh yeah. If I can activate my city's mid-turn and you can't, then I can make it proactively make it so that I get the first big turn. And
Right.
if you don't do anything about that, well, you're gonna have a hard time winning the game.
And when that's available, that's the other big circumstance where, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and buy it to empty it because they're going to get the first big turn anyway.
Sure.
So, yes, it maybe activates their first city that wouldn't have been activated, but um, that's like, okay, so they draw one more card this way. That's not worth denying myself that city.
Hmm. And I
Um,
feel like the way that you play around this, the way that you can put yourself in a position where I can activate the city's mid-turn and my opponent can't, and I can get some benefit out of that. Like the way that you play around that actually is strikingly similar to very advanced endgame play, like in engines. Just managing the pile of provinces, which ends the game, or the pile of cities that you want to take advantage of having control over.
it can effectively end the game, or
Right,
close to.
right, or at least it's the big goal. And
Right.
so like you don't have the total number of points to also take into consideration, which is an additional complexity for the overall end game of Dominion. But you do have to think about gains and when in your turn you can do them, and when in your turn your opponent can do them, and how much you can take advantage of that, and those mid-turn gainers and getting the most out of your cities. That can be there can be a lot of dancing around that. So as opposed to buying the last city, you can dance around number of games, number of cards in a pile, etc.
Right. And I think the very basic things, which I I hope that is understood, and we kind of talked about a little bit implied, but I'm going to make it explicit here. The basic things that you want to have in order to be able to do this effectively are having more cities than your opponent is a big deal. That's going to help me activate them favorably, right?
Sure, if the
Um,
gainer is
because
terminal, like you're gonna need some actions, and city gives you
well,
that. Yeah.
so the gainer being terminal, but also just if I have enough more, then it doesn't hurt me as much to have my opponent have them active, right?
And also, you stand to benefit more from activating them mid-turn.
You benefit more and your opponent doesn't benefit as much,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So having more cities is one thing, and then having uh, early turn gainers, but especially having some way to gain them relatively early in the turn without necessarily having to have played a bunch of cities first.
Yeah, it would be
If
ideal.
my deck is only a bunch of cities and then a gainer or two and then maybe a couple other cards, or several other cards maybe, it's not as good for me if I have to play city, 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 city before I find that gainer to activate them, because I'm not going to have very many cities left to play after, right?
For sure.
So if I can find some way maybe to scheme it to the top, or to warehouse to dig for it, or to have an engine set up already where I don't have to play my cities first, then that's going to be a pretty big benefit. Sometimes you can't get that and you kind of just have to roll the dice. But if you can, you want to look for those kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe we've gone through everything I had in my outline.
You believe we've gone through everything you had in your
Yeah.
outline. The only other thing I want to talk about is um, a little bit more on the dancing around without being able to activate mid turn.
Okay.
Um, that it's really tricky sometimes. Uh, so you go and you lower down one pile very low to one, usually, and then you go and you lower the next pile down very low to one. And if you can see this coming from a ways off, you want to be able to position yourself. Having a lot of buys or gains is very important in these kinds of games. You want to be able to position yourself to empty sometimes all three piles at the same time.
Yeah,
Uh,
you can have your first big city turn, but the
I've had
game's over.
I've had a number of games where my plan to defeat them, and sometimes this was I'm playing against a city. This sometimes comes up when I'm not going for city at all, and what I'm trying to do is empty out other piles.
Ah, yeah.
Um, but you have to be very careful when you're doing this, because what you want to do is if you give them a turn, you can often be in very bad shape. But if you can time it just right to where they're trying to lower a pile, you're lowering some other pile that isn't as good for them, and maybe there's a third pile that's getting low, or you have a way to get a bunch of gains at a time somehow. You empty three piles at once, they never get their turn. That is a way to defeat them having a big turn. So that's a way to play around it. Um, there's this concept sometimes, a completely different area is, let's talk about the case where, say, there's a curse giver on the board,
Okay.
right?
Ooh, yeah.
And so the curses are going to run out because you're both going to buy the witch or whatever it is, and you're going to play witch a lot. So the curses are going to run out. Or this comes up a lot with ill-gotten gains,
Mm.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And so you have some junky pile that's going to run out, and then the cities will be active. So you think, city is good here. Usually it's not.
Well, I would assume that duchy can be pretty good there. Yeah.
Um, well, it depends. So if there's strong trashing to get around the junk, then yeah, city can be great, because you still want to junk them because the trashing isn't just like magic, and it takes some resources to do
Wait,
it.
wait. Trashing isn't magic? What?
It's not magic. Trashing is not magic. Thinning is winning.
My whole worldview has just been rocked.
Oh, with thinning is winning. I know, right?
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
I know. It's a marvelous new invention, contraption. Assemble, go. Um, yeah, yeah. Cowards can't block warriors. Um,
So the curses run out, and if you can trash them, cities are good. Yeah.
yeah, if they're strong trashing to do that, cities are good. But if that's not the case, then these junking kind of games with, say, cultist or marauder or mountebank or witch or whatever, or sea hag even,
Ew, gross.
yeah, right, with the headband and the
Purple
moonlight and
headband, pink hair, moonlight. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So City's just not a very good card there, even if it's activated. And the reason is, in that kind of deck, sometimes it's better than a lab. Usually it's not a lot better than a lab. Lab is not very good in that kind of deck. Like, now it's a fine card, but it's not like my opponent's going for ill-gotten gains. They're going to run out the IGGs. I'm going to run out the cities. I'll be ahead, or maybe not run them out already entirely, but I'm going to have like 7 of them. Like, it doesn't work. My deck is so much junk. Even though I have 7 activated cities, I can't do that
Yeah,
much, right?
maybe buy a province, maybe.
Well, certainly I should be able to probably buy a province or maybe 2, but one province I'm still behind in points, and my opponent's deck, if I'm not also junking
Yeah,
them,
is good enough to
if
buy
we
their own
get back to
provinces.
G games, is going to be quite good. My deck's going to be bad. So, if you're both junking each other, City's an okay card. It's a little bit better than Lab. But in a junky game, Lab isn't very good. So I think a lot of people are like, oh, that pile's going to run. City's going to be a great card. And if you don't have a way to make your deck not be junky, then it's not a very good card. Just because drawing 2 cards when some of them are really bad cards doesn't help that much.
Yeah, it sounds pretty rank, man.
And especially because it's just a village until they do entirely run out. And they don't run out as fast as people think in a lot of cases. Um, Cultist is kind of an exception there,
Yeah.
but then like you need to have your city in hand before the cultist, and okay, occasionally it works, but not very often. You need to have like scheme.
Either one of those should probably work.
Hashtag 3-card combo. Anyway, I think that's all we have for the cities
Uh,
that we built.
yeah, I feel like I've said what I needed to say. Like maybe a song had told me to do 700 or 800 times in a row. Yeah.
Also, I think it's factually incorrect to say that we built this city.
I didn't. I never said that.
I didn't say that you said it. I'm just saying it's factually incorrect to say.
Okay. Okay. I
I'm just throwing that
I
out there.
wouldn't I wouldn't think of doing such a thing. Yeah.
Okay,
Totally.
great.
Great. Well, now that we've concluded the consumption of our Virginia brand ham,
Delicious.
it was really good. Yeah.
Let's move on to some more bread.
Yeah. Bread's pretty good too.
Bread is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have that kingdom
I
ready?
do. I've got it right in front of me.
Great.
Do you want me to read the cards, or do you want to do it this time?
Yes.
Good answer. Good answer. Sure.
Survey said.
0. So this thank you. So this game, we have Cut Purse, Procession, Quarry, Silk Road, Cash, City, Contraband, Ill-Gotten Gains, Mountebank, and Soothsayer. And we've got shelters in this game.
Once again, for our audio only listeners, that is Cut Purse, Procession, that's not Possession, but Procession, Quarry, Silk Road, Cache, City, Contraband, Ill-Gotten Gains, Mountebank, Soothsayer, with no colonies, but yes on shelters.
All right. This board's ugly. There's 3 different ways to give your opponents purples.
I love purples.
Of course you do.
I warmly accept your purples
With what?
with my left arm.
Okay, interesting. That's not really the way I would go with it. So there's city here, right? That's a card, but
Yep.
and there's purples that are probably gonna run, but
It's true.
there's no trashing. Mountebank
Yeah.
is a card,
It's true.
and really that just kind of puts the kibosh on any really big hopes and dreams that you have this game. I feel like any sort of shenanigan potential is going to be lost. So the game will.
This is the kind of board I love, by the way.
I know you do. This board I'm going to lose every single game we play on it.
No, you're not.
Sure. You'll just punt one game to me.
Well, if we play like one game, you might. If we play two, you might. If we play like six, you probably won't.
55.
If we play 55 games, I'd be very surprised if you lost them all.
Challenge accepted. Yeah. So
Well,
so the
I'm sure if you're trying to, you can.
so the crux of this game, of course, is when to green. Silk Road doesn't have estates to support it, so like that tempts me to go for Province, but the attacks are so nasty. Cut Purse is big, Mountebank is big, Soothsayer is meh, I think. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
gaining golds is nice, but ugh, it just seems so bad.
Interesting.
Silk Road's probably just another pile of duchies here, I think. I want to open Cut Purse Silver or Mountebank nothing if I'm lucky.
Quarry?
No,
Is quarry a consideration at all?
absolutely not.
Well, it helps you to get to 2-5 attacks better. Like, I don't think it's
I
crazy.
feel like Cut Purse is just way better.
I agree that I also think cut purse is better, but I don't think quarry is crazy, especially if you took cut purse off the board. I think quarry would be a real
I
consideration.
would buy
Up,
Silver over Quarry.
I think I would also buy silver over quarry, but I don't think it's a crazy. I think it'd be a reasonable discussion to have because now I think cut purse is a lot better, largely because like cut pursing them off a copper does a lot.
Oh yeah, the Cut Purse is a really good card throughout the course of the game.
Yeah. Well, especially early,
Yeah, well,
but it's not bad late
throughout the
either.
course of the game, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure.
So you want to open cut purse silver, you going for mountebank, and
Yeah, that
then
second fiver
provinces
would
eventually.
be, who knows? I mean, the second fiver, like I'd sort of be tempted by Soothsayer if I can get it early
Uh huh.
enough, because
Uh
that
huh.
gold gain is pretty nice. It's pretty
Yeah.
decent. Like that'll actually give me some hope at hitting province.
Do you are okay? What later fives are you looking at? Like, are you looking at just going to duchies really early? Do you want to cash ever? Um,
I don't know about
city.
cash. City probably never. Uh,
Okay.
I would
IGG.
consider Ig to win to tip the curse split in my favor, of course.
Sure. Contraband.
Man, Contraband has Silk Road, but I just don't like it very much.
Okay.
Like if it's early enough,
Contraband quarry combo.
sure. Uh, I if it's early enough, I would want to get the Soothsayer. If it's late enough, I would probably just want the Duchy.
If I have a contraband and a quarry in play and you don't deny me city, I can get multiple cities.
Uh,
And then if I do that a few times, I can run the cities out. And then you'd be increasingly kind of stupid to not deny me cities.
okay, great. Meanwhile, I'll be winning the game with points.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch,
Yeah, that just doesn't seem. It seems way too slow and really
I agree with you. I don't
unreliable.
think it's good. I don't think it's good at all. I was pointing out, it's a thing that you might think of, but I
There's
think it's very
there's
bad.
no way to line
Mostly
up
because,
Contraband and Quarry. There's no way to do it.
well, well, besides that, also once you've gotten four cities, like I'm gonna see what you're doing. I'm going to start denying you city, unless it just doesn't matter so much that you're dead
Two
if you
piles
keep
are
getting cities.
already empty. You can have as many cities as you want.
Well,
Okay, that's
you
not
can have the
entirely true.
last one anyway.
Well, yeah, yeah. JK.
JK,
JK,
JK.
JK. I was just thinking the same thing, bruh.
LOL, LOL.
Maybe I wasn't thinking that.
Lollar skates?
I prefer
Rafflecopter?
Rafflecopter. Yeah, I'm a Rafflecopter guy. What can I say?
You can say that you're a Rafflecopter guy.
Hey, guess what?
No.
Oh, never mind. I don't have anything to say then. Yeah, I look forward to losing every single game I play with you of this because I feel like knowing when to green is very difficult, and I won't be as good at it as you.
Agree that it's important. Don't know if you'll be as good at it as me. Think first player advantage is incredibly important on this board. So I certainly don't expect to win every game. Uh, in fact, I definitely expect to win less than half the games I go second.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, I also like cut purse silver. I want to get a Soothsayer. That's what I want for my first 5.
Huh.
Um,
That
the
that makes the game a lot faster. Province has become a lot more viable in that game.
the
Yeah.
gold is good, I think, really good. Giving the copper is like it's not okay. Like
But
obviously, I'd rather give a copper than not, but I don't think that's as huge as it normally is. Being able to be moded is a big deal. Um,
hmm.
so I like going for Soothsayer. I think my second 5 buy is probably going to be a second Soothsayer. I might think about getting a city or 2, but not a lot. And probably not because I'm probably getting green instead. I might get an ill-gotten gains, but probably only if it's giving the last curse that I think you're going to give to me anyway.
Yeah.
Um, I like Silk Road because it's one of my favorite cards. Probably not great here, but
It's
it
another
kind
pile
of
of
depends
duchies. Yeah.
on if I'm going for early, if I get a number of early duchies, which I think is reasonably likely, then I might eventually go for Silk Roads. But I have to think like if you're going for it really depends on what your opponent's doing, right? If you are going for mountebanks, then I think it's going to take you a long time to actually be getting up to provinces. I could be wrong, but it kind of depends on how the game plays out. If I think I'm going to have a long time if I don't go for many provinces, uh, then obviously I think the Silk Roads are going to be better. Um, but you go for duchies first for a long time before you do other stuff.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I wish I could tell you people better early on, but you really need to watch how the game develops as to, okay, I'm going to be going in for duchies or I'm going to be going for provinces more. I think either way, you get duchies reasonably early and probably earlier than you would think about in, say, like a big money smithy kind of game.
Okay.
In terms of maybe not in terms of turns, but certainly in terms of
How
like,
many provinces are left? And yeah.
yeah, I think I want to buy province and duchy at roughly the same time, and I might even want to buy duchy first.
Hmm. Interesting.
Anyway, leave us comments or questions on Reddit, my blog, our YouTube channels,
Yeah.
Hither, Yon.
But we had our bad
Yon.
experience with zither or thither.
Yon. Get it? Yon.
Yawn.
I'm very clever and funny, also humble.
That was a good one, bro.
Yeah. So with that, we'll see you next time as we try to make luck. Da 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 dun 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 dun. Okay, no more. It's a Minion podcast. A Dominion podcast.
That's a sad Mickey Mouse voice. Not like the voice itself is sad, but the voice is of a sad Mickey Mouse.
A Dominion podcast. Hello. On this week's Making Luck, we are going to talk about the card City. Now, I'm sure the first thing all of you are wondering is, once a city gets activated, does it go up to level 1 from level 0? Or does it go to level 2 from level 1? Breathe, Adam.